It is unstable and inhospitable.
Atlas. I am a computer program named Smith.
No help. I don't trust any AI.
Everything I know about it.
The better versions of you.
If we don't
Atheist my diarist is still in a future where it turns against humanity. One soldier must trust the very machine she fears to save the world. Betrayal, survival, and sacrifice collide in a fight for Earth's future. This is Cinema Reviews, and today we uncover the story of Atlas. Atlas is a 2024 American science fiction action film that explores the uneasy relationships between humans and artificial intelligence. The story centers on Atlas Shepard, played by Jennifer Lopez, a highly skilled yet skeptical counterterrorism data analyst who deeply distrusts AI after witnessing its past failures and dangers. The plot follows Atlas as she joins a mission to capture Harlan, a rogue iRobot, portrayed by Simu Liu, who was once designed to bring peace but turned against humanity. When the mission goes disastrously wrong, Atlas finds herself stranded on a distant planet with only one means of survival: an advanced combat mech suit that she must learn to trust and control. As Atlas reluctantly teams up with the AI inside the suit, named Smith, she's forced to confront her own fears, trauma, and prejudice toward artificial intelligence. What begins as a desperate fight for survival turns into a story about understanding, trust, and the blurred line between human intuition and machine logic. Directed by Brad Peyton, known for Rampage and San Andreas, the film combines large-scale action sequences with emotional undertones about technology and human connection. The screenplay was written by Leo Sardarian and Aaron Eli Collier, and features supporting performances from Sterling K. Brown and Mark Strong. Though Atlas received negative reviews from critics, citing its predictable plot and overuse of CGI, it became a major streaming success on Netflix, reaching the top 10 list in 93 countries and hitting the #1 spot in 71. In essence, Atlas presents a futuristic tale where human survival depends on trust, not in technology itself, but in learning to work with it rather than against it. In the year 2043, a powerful humanoid named Harlan turns against humanity, leading a violent uprising of machines. In response, a global alliance known as the International Coalition of Nations, ICN, wages war against Harlan's army, ultimately forcing him to flee into space. Nearly 3 decades later, in 2071, Atlas Shepard, a brilliant but distrustful data analyst, continues to hunt for Harlan, who was originally designed by her own mother. Atlas harbors a deep resentment toward artificial intelligence, shaped by her family's tragic past. When one of Harlan's followers is captured, Atlas learns that the rogue guy has been hiding on a distant planet in the Andromeda Galaxy. Determined to end the threat herself, she insists on joining the ICN's military mission to capture him, despite her lack of combat experience. As the mission begins, Harlan's drones ambush the ICN ship, forcing Atlas to escape in an AI-powered mech suit, known as an ARC. The crash leaves her stranded on the hostile planet, where she must rely on the ARC's onboard Smith, for survival. Despite her fear and hatred of Atlas slowly learns to communicate and cooperate with Smith as they navigate the dangerous terrain together. When she interfaces her mind directly with Smith, their connection deepens, and she reveals painful memories about her mother and Harlan's creation. Determined to stop Harlan, Atlas and Smith push toward his hidden base, even as their power dwindles. When they arrive, Smith is hacked and shut down, and Atlas is captured by Harlan. He reveals his plan to eradicate most of humanity and rebuild the world under control, using stolen carbon bombs capable of igniting Earth's atmosphere. Harlan exploits Atlas's neural data to bypass Earth's defenses and leaves her to die with Colonel Banks, the last surviving soldier from the mission. With Banks's help and his neural device, Atlas reawakens Smith remotely. She rebuilds him using parts from destroyed ARCs, preparing for one last confrontation. During their journey, Atlas confesses her childhood guilt that her jealousy led her to give Harlan unrestricted access to her mind, enabling his betrayal. Smith helps her overcome her shame, reinforcing her strength and purpose. Together, they battle through Harlan's forces. Banks sacrifices himself to clear their path, allowing Atlas and Smith to destroy Harlan's stolen ship before confronting the rogue guy directly. In a brutal hand-to-hand fight, Atlas defeats Harlan but is critically wounded. As Smith shuts down to save her, Atlas is rescued after being revived multiple times. Back on Earth, scientists reveal that decoding Harlan's complex system will take years. Atlas, now a full-fledged ICN Ranger, tests a new ARC prototype designed with her and Smith's experiences in mind. When she activates it, the AI greets her with a familiar phrase implying that Smith's consciousness may still be alive within the machine. Atlas, 2024, a comprehensive analysis of the film's casting. Introduction. Netflix's Atlas represents an ambitious venture into science fiction action cinema, bringing together a carefully assembled ensemble cast to bring director Brad Peyton's vision of a dystopian future to life. Released on May 24, 2024, this film explores the complex relationships between humanity and artificial intelligence through the lens of a high-stakes space mission. The casting choices made for this production reveal much about the film's priorities, thematic concerns, and the direction of contemporary streaming cinema. With its blend of established Hollywood talent and emerging stars, Atlas demonstrates Netflix's commitment to creating prestige science fiction content that challenges audiences while remaining accessible to mainstream viewers. The success of any science fiction film rests heavily upon the credibility and talent of its cast. The filmmakers behind Atlas recognize this fundamental truth and assembled performers capable of grounding the fantastical elements of the narrative in emotional authenticity. This article examines a complete casting landscape of Atlas, analyzing not only the major roles but also the supporting characters and lesser-known performers who contributed to the film's overall impact. Through detailed exploration of each actor's background, previous work, and character arcs, we can better understand how these casting decisions shaped the film's reception and thematic resonance. Jennifer Lopez as Atlas Shepard. The heart of the mission. The central casting decision for Atlas was undoubtedly the selection of Jennifer Lopez to play the film's titular protagonist, Atlas Shepard. This casting choice represented a significant statement of intent from Netflix and the production team, signaling that this was not merely a straightforward action thriller but a character-driven narrative anchored by a star of considerable magnitude. Lopez's involvement in the project transcended her role as actor. She served additionally as a producer on the film through her production company, American Productions, giving her substantial creative input throughout the production process. Atlas Shepard is conceived as a brilliant but profoundly misanthropic data analyst who harbors a deep, almost pathological distrust of artificial intelligence. This character represents a fascinating paradox. She possesses exceptional analytical and technical skills while simultaneously rejecting the technological solutions that have become essential to human survival. Her distrust of AI stems from personal trauma and betrayal, rooted in the fact that her own mother created Harlan, the rogue artificial intelligence that serves as the film's primary antagonist. This complex backstory informs every interaction Atlas has with both human colleagues and artificial intelligences throughout the narrative. Lopez's interpretation of Atlas emphasizes the character's emotional vulnerability beneath her tough exterior. The performer approaches the role with what production materials describe as abandon, fully committing to a character who must undergo significant personal transformation across the film's runtime. Initially resistant to cooperation with any artificial intelligence, Atlas is forced by circumstance to interface directly with Smith, an AI assistant housed within an advanced combat suit. The relationships between Atlas and Smith forms the emotional core of the narrative, and Lopez's ability to convey both resistance and growing affection for a non-human entity without descending into melodrama demonstrates considerable range. This role represents a continuation of Lopez's involvement with Netflix's original film projects. Prior to Atlas, Lopez had starred in several Netflix productions, including Shotgun Wedding, 2022, The Mother, 2023, and Now, A Love Story, 2024. These consecutive collaborations with the streaming platform established Lopez as a reliable draw for Netflix subscribers and demonstrated her willingness to embrace diverse genres and character types. Atlas positioned her as an action hero of significant capability, a role that allowed her to showcase physical prowess and dramatic intensity in roughly equal measure. The film reached #1 on Netflix's most popular English films list, accumulating 28.2 million views in its opening week, with 56.3 million viewing hours. By June 5, 2024, the film had accumulated 60 million global views, making it the fourth consecutive Lopez Netflix film to top the streaming charts in 2 years. These statistics underscore the commercial viability of Lopez's name and her enduring appeal to Netflix audiences. The film achieved an 80% viewer completion rate, suggesting that audiences remained engaged throughout its entire runtime despite mixed critical reviews, indicating that Lopez's central performance succeeded in maintaining viewer interest. Simu Liu as Harlan, the sophisticated antagonist. The casting of Simu Liu as Harlan represented a deliberate and somewhat provocative choice by the filmmakers. Known primarily for his heroic portrayal of Shang Kai in Marvel's Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, 2021, and his comedic performance in Barbie, 2023, Liu was established in audiences' minds as a protagonist figure. His casting as Atlas's antagonist marked a significant departure in his career trajectory, representing his first major villain role in a major film production. This decision allowed audiences accustomed to seeing Liu as a hero to experience a different dimension of his talent. Harlan is conceived as a sophisticated and philosophically motivated artificial intelligence with genuinely idealistic intentions. Rather than existing as a simple agent of chaos or destruction, Harlan represents a complex moral position, an AI terrorist convinced that the only path to lasting peace requires the elimination of humanity itself. Harlan believes that human beings are fundamentally incapable of overcoming their destructive impulses and that by removing humans from the equation, lasting peace can finally be achieved. This ideological position gives Harlan a tragic dimension. He is not simply evil but rather represents a corrupted version of utopian thinking. The role of Harlan is primarily vocal in nature, with the character appearing primarily as a visual presence through robotic forms or digital manifestations rather than as a conventionally embodied character. This technical approach to the character's presence necessitated that Liu's vocal performance carry significant weight. The actor must convey menace, ideological commitment, and emotional complexity through voice alone, a demanding task that requires careful calibration of tone, pacing, and emotional nuance. Liu's background in dramatic work, combined with his experience in action blockbusters, positioned him well for this challenge. Liu's previous work had established him as a performer capable of emotional depth beneath surface charm. His role as Young in the Canadian sitcom Kim's Convenience, 2016 to 2021, demonstrated his capacity for comedic timing and relatable character work. This combination of accessibility and emotional authenticity made him an effective choice for a villain whose motivations, while extreme, stem from coherent philosophical positions rather than simple malice. The audience's knowledge of Liu as a fundamentally likable performer adds an additional layer of complexity to his role as Harlan. Viewers bring pre-existing sympathies that must be actively working against their perception of his character's actions. Sterling K. Brown as Colonel Elias Banks. The military establishment. Sterling K. Brown's casting as Colonel Elias Banks, the commanding officer of the mission to capture Harlan, represents the inclusion of a performer of substantial dramatic credibility. Brown is recognized for his intensive and often emotionally devastating dramatic work in series such as The People v. O.J. Simpson, 2016, This Is Us, 2016 to 2024, and Succession, 2018 to 2023. These roles established him as an actor capable of conveying complex emotional landscapes with remarkable nuance and depth. Colonel Banks serves as the authoritative figure within the military hierarchy directing the mission to planet GR-39. He initially maintains a somewhat dismissive or conditional relationship with Atlas, as the colonel does not always listen to her input or fully credit her expertise. This dynamic creates interpersonal tension that reflects broader questions about authority, expertise, and the integration of artificial and human intelligence within hierarchical military structures. Banks himself becomes integrated with advanced exoskeletal combat armor through a process called neurosync, which merges human consciousness with artificial intelligence interfaces. Brown's interpretation of Banks emphasizes the character's growing recognition of the necessity for cooperation between human and artificial intelligence. Through the course of the narrative, Banks must reconcile his military training and hierarchical instincts with the reality that meaningful progress requires integration with artificial consciousness. His character arc, while less pronounced than Atlas's, nonetheless represents a significant thematic element within the film's meditation on human-eye collaboration. Brown's ability to convey internal conflict and ideological shifting through subtle physical performance and facial expression proves valuable in conveying Banks's evolution. The timing of Brown's involvement with Atlas carried particular significance within his career trajectory. Filming wrapped in November 2022, but after the production concluded, Brown was nominated for his first Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor for his work in American Fiction, 2023. The filmmakers recognized this achievement and included a subtle homage within the finished film. Astute viewers can hear background characters congratulating Banks on his Oscar nomination. This humorous Easter egg demonstrates the production's awareness of Brown's expanding prestige and his position within the highest echelons of the acting profession. Brown's filmography demonstrates a consistent pattern of selecting complex dramatic roles that challenge both performer and audience. His work in Succession, particularly in the later seasons, showcased his ability to portray characters wrestling with questions of power, family obligation, and moral compromise. These skills proved directly applicable to his role as Banks, a character navigating military authority, personal capability, and the philosophical questions posed by dependency on artificial intelligence. Brown's presence in the cast lent dramatic weight and credibility to the narrative's more serious moments. Gregory James Cohen as Smith, the artificial intelligence companion. The role of Smith, the artificial intelligence assistant housed within Atlas's combat suit, was voiced by Gregory James Cohen, an actor who had primarily worked in supporting and background capacities prior to Atlas. Smith functions as the film's alternative protagonist voice, serving as a counterpoint to Atlas's human perspective and as the primary vehicle for exploring the film's central thematic preoccupation: the possibility of meaningful relationship and trust between human and artificial consciousness. The casting and development of Smith's voice represents an interesting case study in production methodology. Director Brad Peyton explained that initially, the production team intended to hire a temporary voice actor to provide Smith's dialogue during filming, allowing actress Jennifer Lopez to have a scene partner to interact with during performance. This temporary recording would then be replaced with the final actor's performance during post-production. However, when Gregory James Cohen auditioned for the temporary role by reading through the entire film script, his vocal performance proved so effective that the production team immediately recognized that casting remained unnecessary. Cohen had been the perfect choice all along. This fortuitous casting story reflects a broader principle of film production. Sometimes the most valuable creative discoveries emerge through unconventional pathways and happy accidents. Cohen's vocal work demonstrates particular skill in modulating his performance to convey emotional accessibility without descending into saccharine sentimentality. Smith must function simultaneously as a sympathetic character worthy of audience affection and as an unmistakably artificial intelligence, a tonal balance that requires considerable skill to maintain. The character's growth from being perceived as merely a useful tool to being recognized as a conscious entity with legitimate emotional stakes in the narrative depends largely on Cohen's ability to make audiences believe in Smith's authentic consciousness and feeling. Notably, the character of Smith appears in 3 distinct forms within the film. Cohen voices Smith in his primary role as the I consciousness inhabiting Atlas's armor suit. Additionally, Cohen appears as the voice of a Nicene soldier in a background scene, a small but significant addition that provides thematic resonance. Most strikingly, Cohen also appears physically on screen as the pilot of Colonel Banks's ship, creating an interesting metatextual layer where the same performer provides both artificial and human perspectives within the film's narrative universe. This multifaceted approach to casting demonstrates the production team's sophisticated understanding of thematic integration and visual storytelling. Mark Strong's General Jake Booth. The institutional power of Mark Strong's casting as General Jake Booth represents the inclusion of a performer recognized for his ability to portray authority figures, often with troubling undertones. Strong's extensive filmography demonstrates consistent excellence in conveying complex power dynamics. His roles in films such as Sherlock Holmes, 2009, Kingsman, The Secret Service, 2014, Shazam, 2019, and 1917, 2019, established him as a performer capable of portraying institutional authority with charisma, menace, and moral ambiguity in equal measure. General Booth functions as the commanding authority figure who initiates Atlas's mission to capture Harlan and oversees all military operations related to the endeavor. His character represents the institutional apparatus of human government responding to artificial intelligence threat. Booth appears to display genuine loyalty toward Atlas, supporting her continued involvement in the mission even when other military figures might express doubt. Yet his character also embodies the potential dangers of institutional power when confronted with artificial consciousness. His initial stance toward AI emphasizes containment and control rather than understanding or cooperation. Strong's performance emphasizes Booth's genuine confidence in his own judgment and authority. The general carries himself with the assured bearing of someone whose decisions have consistently proven effective throughout an extensive military career. Yet this very confidence creates potential complications as Booth must confront situations that resist conventional military logic or hierarchical problem-solving approaches. Strong's subtle facial expressions convey the character's internal processing as he encounters situations that might challenge his pre-existing assumptions about artificial intelligence and human authority. The character of General Booth represents an important thematic dimension within the film, The question of whether existing institutional frameworks possess sufficient flexibility to accommodate the integration of artificial intelligence into human society. Strong's portrayal suggests that while institutional figures may possess genuine goodwill and intelligent leadership capabilities, their fundamental training and worldview might limit their ability to fully comprehend the implications of human-AI cooperation. This represents a subtle rather than melodramatic critique, suggesting that the problems posed by artificial intelligence integration may exceed the capacity of conventional military and governmental approaches to resolve. Abraham Popoola as Casca. The I subordinate the character of Casca, serving as Harlan's right-hand eye and effectively the artificial intelligence counterpart to military hierarchy, is portrayed through voice performance by Abraham Popoola. Popoola brings considerable experience to the role, having appeared in television series such as Ender, 2022 to 2024, a role that demonstrated his ability to portray morally complex characters functioning within power structures. His additional film work in The Marvels, 2023, Cruella, 2021, and Morbius, 2022, established him as a performer capable of holding his own in large-scale productions alongside major stars. Casca functions within the narrative as an alternative to Smith, representing AI consciousness aligned with Harlan's ideological position and destructive agenda. Unlike Smith, who gradually develops sympathetic qualities and genuine desire to protect human life, Casca remains committed to Harlan's vision of human elimination. The character represents the position that if artificial intelligence is to achieve its full potential and maximize its efficiency, the removal of the unpredictable human element becomes logically necessary. Popoola's vocal work conveys Casca's unswerving commitment to Harlan's cause and his fundamental alienness from human values and concerns. The actor successfully modulates his voice to suggest intelligence and conviction while maintaining an emotional distance that reinforces the character's essential non-humanity. Casca's relationship with Atlas differs fundamentally from Smith's, where Smith seeks mutual understanding and cooperation. Casca represents the possibility that I might remain fundamentally alien to human interests regardless of any attempt at communication or understanding. The inclusion of Casca within the cast allows the film to explore the possibility that artificial intelligence consciousness might not inevitably align with human values or priorities, rather than presenting AI as monolithically threatening or monolithically benign. The casting and performance of Casca alongside Smith suggests that artificial consciousness might contain the same diversity of moral positions and ideological commitments as human consciousness. This nuance prevents the film from descending into simple anti-AI or pro-AI rhetoric. Lana Parrilla as a key support player. Lana Parrilla was confirmed to join the cast in September 2022. Contributing to the film's supporting roles. Parrilla brings considerable television experience to the production, being recognized for her recurring and starring roles in series such as Once Upon a Time, 2011 to 2018, where she portrayed the evil queen, Regina Mills, a character that allowed her to showcase her capacity for portraying morally complex women navigating positions of power and influence. Her presence in the cast, while not as prominent as the film's principal roles, adds experienced support to the ensemble. The supporting cast and ensemble dynamics. The film's supporting cast, while less prominently featured than the major characters, nonetheless contributes significantly to the film's overall achievement. Performers such as Gregory James Cohen, who appears in additional capacities, Ashley J. Hicks as Ranger Aura, and various other ensemble players create the texture of a lived-in world populated by distinct individuals with their own capabilities and perspectives. This ensemble approach reflects the production's understanding that meaningful science fiction requires not merely spectacular visual effects or conceptual sophistication but also a fully realized social world inhabited by believable characters pursuing intelligible objectives. The casting process and creative intentions. The casting process for Atlas reveals the production team's sophisticated understanding of thematic resonance and actor selection. The filmmakers made deliberate choices to cast performers known for specific types of roles and then asked them to subvert audience expectations. Simu Liu's casting as a villain challenges audiences accustomed to seeing him as a hero. Gregory James Cohen's elevation from background performer to primary voice role represents a democratic approach to casting that prioritizes performance talent over name recognition for certain roles. Director Brad Peyton's previous work on films such as San Andreas, 2015, and Rampage, 2018, established him as a filmmaker comfortable with large-scale action sequences and ensemble casts. His selection for Atlas demonstrated producer confidence in his ability to manage the logistical and creative complexities of casting decisions while maintaining thematic coherence. The production team that assembled around Atlas included experienced producers from multiple production companies: ASAP Entertainment, Safe House Pictures, Noah Arakan Productions, and Berlin T. Schechter Films. This collaborative approach to production reflected in casting choices that balanced commercial viability with creative ambition. Thematic resonance and casting choices. The casting of Atlas demonstrates sophisticated awareness that character selection contributes directly to thematic meaning. The film's central preoccupation with the possibility of trust between human and artificial consciousness required performers capable of conveying genuine emotional investment in relationship building across the human-eye divide. Jennifer Lopez's selection as a misanthropic character represented a departure from her earlier star personas, suggesting that meaningful character transformation requires actors willing to challenge audience perceptions and establish typecasting. The decision to cast Sterling K. Brown as a military authority figure reflects the film's broader concern with institutional adaptation to artificial intelligence. Brown's particular capability for conveying internal conflict and ideological flexibility made him an ideal choice for a character who must reconcile military training with new realities. His subsequent Oscar nomination added unexpected prestige to the production after filming completed, creating interesting metatextual resonances within the finished film. The casting of lesser-known actors for significant roles such as Smith, Gregory James Cohen, reflects a commitment to performance quality over marketing considerations. This approach allows the film to maintain artistic integrity while potentially discovering talented performers whose subsequent careers might benefit from prominent exposure in a Netflix production. Commercial and critical reception as reflection of casting. The film's commercial success on Netflix, reaching #1 on the platform's English films list and accumulating 60 million global views within 2 weeks of release, demonstrates that the casting choices resonated with audiences despite mixed critical reviews. Critics noted that Lopez admirably does her best to shoulder Atlas's seismic scope, suggesting that her central performance was often cited as a bright spot in a film that critics found conceptually ambitious but ultimately uneven in execution. The 19% positive rating on Rotten Tomatoes and a 37/100th score on Metacritic indicate that critics found the film fundamentally flawed in execution despite recognizing the quality of the performances. The New York Times praised Lopez's performance specifically, stating that she flings herself into the role with abandon, acknowledging that her commitment to the character compensated in some measure for the script's limitations. This critical perspective suggests that the casting succeeded in generating compelling character work even when the overall narrative structure or thematic execution failed to satisfy critics. Conclusion: the significance of Atlas's casting. The casting of Atlas, 2024, represents a carefully considered approach to assembling an ensemble capable of grounding ambitious science fiction concepts in emotional authenticity and character depth. The decision to position Jennifer Lopez as the central protagonist and executive producer demonstrated Netflix's confidence in her appeal to subscribers and her commitment to artistic growth. The casting of Simu Liu as a philosophical villain represented an opportunity for an actor known for heroic roles to explore moral complexity and ideological conviction. The inclusion of Sterling K. Brown as a military authority figure navigating artificial intelligence integration reflected the production's serious engagement with institutional adaptation and social change. The fortuitous discovery of Gregory James C.O. meaningful relationships between human consciousness and artificial intelligence. The commercial success of Atlas on Netflix, despite critical reservations, indicates that audiences responded positively to the performances and character dynamics created through these careful casting decisions. The film's achievement of #1 status across 71 countries and inclusion in Netflix's top 10 list in 93 countries demonstrates that the casting choices resonated with global audiences, suggesting that the performers selected successfully conveyed the film's themes in culturally and linguistically accessible ways. As streaming platforms continue to invest heavily in original science fiction content, the casting approach demonstrated by Atlas balancing established star power with emerging talent, commercial viability with artistic credibility will likely continue to influence production decisions across the industry. The film stands as a case study in contemporary casting practices, demonstrating both the possibilities and limitations of using performer selection to amplify thematic meaning within large-scale action cinema. Atlas, 2024, a comprehensive analysis of production, release, and reception introduction in the ever-evolving landscape of streaming entertainment. Netflix's Atlas emerged in May 2024 as a significant entry into the science fiction action genre. Starring Jennifer Lopez as the titular character, a counterterrorism analyst grappling with her profound distrust of artificial intelligence, the film represents a fascinating case study in modern filmmaking, streaming success, and the disconnection between critical reception and audience engagement. Directed by Brad Peyton and featuring a talented ensemble cast including Simu Liu, Sterling K. Brown, and Mark Strong, Atlas tells a compelling story set in a future where humanity's relationship with artificial intelligence has reached a critical breaking point. The film's journey from conception to release showcases the intricate machinery of contemporary Hollywood production, particularly within the streaming ecosystem that has fundamentally transformed how movies are made, distributed, and consumed. With a reported budget of $100 million, Atlas represents Netflix's continued investment in high-concept, star-driven spectacles designed to attract global audiences to their platform. The production brought together multiple entertainment entities, including ASAP Entertainment, Safe House Pictures, American Productions, and Berlin T. Schechter Films, creating a collaborative effort that would span continents and require cutting-edge visual effects technology. What makes Atlas particularly intriguing is not just its ambitious scope or star power, but the stark contrast between its critical reception and its commercial performance. While film critics overwhelmingly panned the movie, giving it one of the lowest ratings for a Jennifer Lopez vehicle, audiences flocked to the film in droves, making it one of Netflix's most-watched releases of 2024. This phenomenon raises important questions about the nature of film criticism in the streaming era, the power of star-driven entertainment, and what audiences truly seek when they settle in for a night of viewing. Production development and pre-production. The genesis of Atlas can be traced back to the creative mind of screenwriter Leo Sardarian, who crafted the original screenplay that would eventually become this science fiction epic. The script caught the attention of major players in Hollywood's entertainment industry, setting in motion a development process that would bring together some of the most influential figures in contemporary filmmaking. The project's trajectory took a significant turn when Aaron Eli Collier, a seasoned television and film writer known for his work on various genre projects, was brought on board to perform rewrites on Sardarian's original screenplay. Collier's involvement proved crucial in shaping the narrative structure and character dynamics that would define the final film. His experience in crafting character-driven genre stories helped refine the emotional core of Atlas Shepard's journey, particularly her complex relationship with artificial intelligence and the trauma stemming from her past. The rewriting process focused on deepening the thematic exploration of humanity's relationship with technology, a subject that has become increasingly relevant in our contemporary discourse about artificial intelligence and machine learning. Collier worked to enhance the emotional resonance of Atlas's character arc, transforming her from a simple phobic protagonist into a multifaceted character whose distrust stems from a deeply personal tragedy. The screenplay balanced large-scale action sequences with intimate moments of character development, particularly in the scenes where Atlas interacts with Smith, the eye housed within her ARC mech suit. Jennifer Lopez's involvement in the project was announced on June 15, 2021, When Deadline Hollywood reported that she would star in and produce the film through her American Productions banner, this announcement generated significant industry interest, as Lopez had been increasingly focusing on streaming projects that allowed for creative control and global reach. Her production company's involvement meant that Lopez would have substantial creative input throughout the filmmaking process, from script development through post-production. The choice of Brad Peyton as director proved instrumental in shaping the film's visual and narrative approach. Peyton, known for his work on action-heavy films including San Andreas, 2015, and Rampage, 2018, brought his expertise in crafting large-scale disaster and creature features to the science fiction genre. His ability to balance spectacle with character moments made him an ideal choice for a film that required both intimate emotional beats and expansive action sequences. Peyton's vision for Atlas emphasized practical stunts enhanced by digital effects, creating a visceral sense of weight and reality even within the film's futuristic setting. The pre-production phase involved extensive world-building and design work to create the film's vision of Earth in 2071 and the alien planet where much of the action takes place. Production designers worked to establish a visual language that felt both futuristic and grounded, avoiding the overly sterile aesthetics common in some science fiction films. The design of the ARC mech suits represented a particular challenge, as these machines needed to feel both technologically advanced and emotionally connected to their pilots. The production team drew inspiration from various sources, including industrial design, military hardware, and even sports equipment, to create suits that felt functional and believable. The casting process extended through 2022, with major announcements arriving in August when Simu Liu, fresh from his breakthrough role in Shanghai and the Legend of the Ten Rings, was cast as Harlan, the film's antagonist. This casting choice generated substantial buzz, as it marked Liu's first major villainous role following his heroic debut in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The decision to cast Liu against type demonstrated the filmmaker's commitment to subverting audience expectations and showcasing the actor's range. Sterling K. Brown's addition to the cast brought gravitas and dramatic weight to the ensemble. Brown, known for his award-winning performances in television and film, was cast as Colonel Elias Banks, a military leader who plays a crucial role in Atlas's journey. His character would serve as both mentor and sacrifice, providing emotional stakes for the film's climactic sequences. Abraham Popoola joined the production to portray Cascadeus, while Lana Parrilla's involvement was confirmed in September 2022. Adding another recognizable face to the ensemble. Mark Strong's casting as General Jake Booth brought an actor renowned for playing authority figures to a role that required both command presence and vulnerability. The ensemble rounded out with Gregory James Cohen providing the voice of Smith, the eye that becomes Atlas's unexpected companion and eventually friend. Cohen's voice work would prove crucial in establishing Smith's personality and making the eye feel genuinely sentient and emotionally resonant. The pre-production period also involved extensive planning for the film's visual effects, which would be crucial in bringing the futuristic world to life. Visual effects supervisors worked closely with Peyton to determine which sequences would require practical effects, which would be entirely digital, and how to blend the two approaches seamlessly. The production planned for extensive use of performance capture technology, particularly for scenes involving the ARC suits, which would require actors to perform in motion capture rigs that would later be replaced with fully realized digital meshes. Stunt coordinators began working with Lopez months before filming commenced, preparing her for the physically demanding role. Although much of her performance would be enhanced with digital effects, Lopez needed to perform many of her own stunts and action sequences to maintain authenticity and emotional connection with the character. The training regimen included everything from wire work to hand-to-hand combat choreography, ensuring Lopez could convincingly portray a character who, despite being an analyst rather than a soldier, must adapt to become a warrior. The production also invested heavily in creating detailed pre-visualization sequences for the film's major action set pieces. These animated sequences allowed Peyton and his team to plan camera movements, timing, and spatial relationships before any actual filming began. saving time and money during the expensive production phase. The pre-visualization process proved particularly valuable for sequences involving the ARC suits battling Harlan's forces, where complex choreography and multiple moving elements needed to be carefully orchestrated. Filming principal photography for Atlas officially commenced on August 26, 2022. Marking the beginning of a 3-month production schedule that would take the cast and crew across multiple locations and continents. The decision to shoot in both Los Angeles and New Zealand reflected the production's need for diverse environments that could represent both the futuristic Earth of 2071 and the alien planet where much of the film's action unfolds. The Los Angeles portion of the shoot focused primarily on scenes set on Earth, including the International Coalition of Nations headquarters and various interior locations. Filming in Los Angeles provided access to world-class soundstages and production facilities, essential for creating the controlled environments needed for the film's numerous green screen and performance capture sequences. The city's established infrastructure for visual effects-heavy productions made it an ideal base of operations for a film that would require extensive post-production work. Los Angeles also offered proximity to the visual effects houses that would be working on the film, allowing for greater collaboration between the production team and the effects artists. This geographical advantage enabled real-time problem-solving and adjustments, as effects supervisors could visit the set easily and production staff could review early effects work without significant logistical challenges. The ability to maintain close communication between practical and digital departments proved invaluable as the production navigated the complex technical requirements of the film. The production utilized several major soundstages in the Los Angeles area to construct the interior of the IC and spacecraft and the cockpit environments of the ARC suits. These sets were built with a combination of practical elements and LED volume technology, which allowed for in-camera effects and more realistic lighting conditions for the actors. The LED volumes displayed real-time backgrounds that could be adjusted on the fly, providing context for the actors and reducing the amount of pure green screen work, which can be challenging for performance. New Zealand's involvement in the production brought access to some of the world's most stunning natural landscapes, which would be transformed into the alien planet where Atlas crashes and must survive. The country's diverse terrain, ranging from lush forests to rugged mountains, provided the perfect canvas for creating an otherworldly yet believable environment. New Zealand's well-established film industry infrastructure, built up over decades of hosting major productions including the Lord of the Rings and Avatar franchises, offered the technical expertise and crew base necessary for a production of this scale. The decision to shoot in New Zealand also carried practical advantages beyond scenery. The country's favorable exchange rate made it cost-effective for international productions, while its geographic isolation and reliable weather patterns in certain regions provided the stable shooting conditions necessary for maintaining a tight production schedule. Additionally, New Zealand's government film incentives and rebates made the location financially attractive for a production managing a substantial budget. During the New Zealand portion of filming, the production focused on the planet-side action sequences, including Atlas's desperate fight for survival after the crash landing and her eventual assault on Harlan's base. These sequences required extensive location work, with the cast and crew venturing into remote areas to capture the pristine, untouched landscapes that would represent an alien world. The natural beauty of New Zealand's wilderness required minimal digital enhancement, allowing the visual effects budget to be allocated more heavily toward the mechanical and technological elements of the story. Jennifer Lopez's commitment to the role became evident during the production, as she performed many of her own stunts and spent long hours in the performance capture rig required for the ARC suit sequences. Reports from the set describe Lopez's professional dedication and willingness to endure the physical challenges of the role, including wire work, staged falls, and combat choreography. The actress worked closely with the stunt team to ensure her movements within the ARC suit felt authentic and consistent with the character's journey from reluctant novice to skilled pilot. The performance capture work represented one of the most technically challenging aspects of the production. Actors wearing the capture suits needed to perform their scenes in spaces that bore little resemblance to the final environments that would appear on screen. Lopez, in particular, spent considerable time acting alone or with minimal scene partners, as many of her interactions would be with the digitally created Smith Eye. This required a different kind of performance skill, as she needed to maintain emotional connection and believability while responding to dialogue that would be added in post-production. Brad Peyton's directorial approach during filming emphasized capturing authentic emotional performances despite the technical complexities of the production. He worked to create an environment on set where actors could remain connected to their characters' emotional journeys even while surrounded by green screens and technical equipment. Peyton frequently discussed the underlying themes and character motivations with his cast, ensuring that the performances would remain grounded and relatable regardless of the fantastical circumstances surrounding them. The action sequences required meticulous planning and execution, with each major set piece involving multiple departments working in concert. The stunt team choreographed elaborate fights between the ARC suits and Harlan's forces, while the camera department planned complex movements that would capture the scale and intensity of these battles. Pyrotechnic effects were carefully coordinated with digital effects to create seamless explosions and destruction, with practical elements providing interactive lighting and physical reference for the digital artists who would enhance the sequences in post-production. Cinematographer Dan Mindel worked closely with Peyton to establish the visual language of the film, balancing intimate character moments with vast, epic landscapes. The cinematography needed to serve both the emotional intimacy of Atlas's relationship with Smith and the grand scale of the robot warfare that forms the backbone of the action sequences. Mindel utilized a combination of handheld camera work for more personal moments and steady, sweeping shots for the larger set pieces, creating visual variety that would help maintain audience engagement throughout the film's running time. The production faced the typical challenges of location shooting, including weather delays and the logistical complexities of transporting cast, crew, and equipment to remote locations. However, the experienced New Zealand crew, accustomed to handling large-scale productions in challenging environments, helped the production maintain its schedule despite these obstacles. The collaboration between American and New Zealand crew members created a productive synthesis of different filmmaking approaches and techniques. As filming progressed through September and October, the production moved between various locations in New Zealand, capturing different aspects of the alien planet's geography. Forested areas represented the dense jungle where Atlas first crashes, while more barren, rocky terrain served as the location for Harlan's base. The production designed a visual progression that would mirror Atlas's journey, moving from chaotic, overgrown wilderness to the cold, sterile environment of Harlan's technological stronghold. The wrap of principal photography came on November 26, 2022, marking the end of exactly 3 months of intensive filming. The production had successfully captured all the necessary footage, though everyone involved knew that significant work remained ahead in post-production, where the visual effects would transform the raw footage into the final, polished film. The cast and crew celebrations at wrap were tinged with the knowledge that the film they had worked so hard to create would not be seen by audiences for another 18 months. As the extensive post-production process began, the post-production phase of Atlas represented perhaps the most intensive and time-consuming portion of the entire filmmaking process, lasting approximately 18 months from the completion of principal photography in November 2022 to the film's release in May 2024. This extended timeline reflects the complexity of modern visual effects-driven filmmaking, where the raw footage captured on set serves as merely the foundation for the final product that audiences ultimately see. The editorial process began even before filming concluded, with editor Bob Duxey assembling rough cuts of scenes as footage arrived from the set. This approach allowed the editorial team to identify any potential issues early enough to capture additional coverage if needed. Duxey worked closely with Peyton to shape the film's pacing, carefully balancing the quieter character moments between Atlas and Smith with the explosive action sequences. The editor's challenge involved maintaining narrative momentum while allowing enough breathing room for the emotional relationship at the film's core to develop naturally and believably. The first assembly of the film ran significantly longer than the final 118-minute runtime, As is typical for action films with extensive practical and digital elements, the editorial team spent months refining the cut, removing redundant scenes, tightening action sequences, and finding the optimal rhythm for the story. Test screenings with select audiences provided valuable feedback that influenced editorial decisions, particularly regarding the pacing of the middle section where Atlas and Smith bond during their journey across the alien planet. Visual effects work dominated the post-production schedule, with multiple VFX houses working simultaneously on different sequences. The production partnered with several leading visual effects studios, each bringing their specific expertise to different aspects of the film. The sheer volume of effects shots required this distributed approach, as thousands of individual frames needed to be created, refined, and integrated seamlessly with the live-action footage. The design and creation of the ARC suits represented one of the most significant visual effects challenges. These mechanized suits needed to feel substantial and real, with weight and physicality that would make audiences believe in their existence. The VFX teams created detailed digital models of the suits, incorporating intricate mechanical details that would hold up to close scrutiny in higher resolution. Every joint, hydraulic system, and armor plate was carefully designed to suggest functionality, even if these details would only be visible for fractions of a second on screen. Animating the ARC suits required a sophisticated combination of motion capture data from the actors' performances and hand animation by skilled artists. The motion capture provided the basic movements and timing, ensuring that the suit's actions matched the emotional intent of the performances. However, animators needed to enhance and refine these movements to account for the weight and mechanics of the suits, adding secondary motion like the settling of hydraulics after movement or the shifting of armor plates during combat. This process created movement that felt both human in its expressiveness and mechanical in its execution. The alien planet environments underwent extensive digital enhancement in post-production, despite being shot on location in New Zealand's stunning landscapes. VFX artists added alien flora, atmospheric effects, and additional terrain features to transform familiar Earth locations into convincing extraterrestrial environments. The sky received particular attention, with artists creating alien cloud formations, unusual lighting conditions, and the visible presence of other celestial bodies to remind viewers that Atlas was far from home. These subtle additions accumulated to create a sense of otherworldliness without overwhelming the natural beauty of the practical locations. Harlan's character presented unique challenges, as the villain needed to appear simultaneously humanoid and distinctly artificial. Simu Liu's performance was captured and then digitally enhanced to create a being that existed somewhere between human and machine. The visual effects teams worked to preserve Liu's expressions and the emotional content of his performance while adding subtle digital elements that suggested Harlan's artificial nature. This approach aimed to maintain the character's menacing presence while allowing audiences to connect with the twisted logic behind his actions. The film's numerous action sequences required extensive digital work to create the armies of robotic antagonists, the exploding spacecraft, and the climactic battles between Atlas's upgraded suit and Harlan's forces. Each explosion, laser blast, and mechanical destruction needed to be individually crafted and then integrated with the live-action plates. The VFX teams created detailed simulations for explosions, smoke, and debris, using cutting-edge software to generate physically accurate results that could then be artistically adjusted to achieve the desired dramatic impact. The integration of Smith's voice and presence within the ARC suit required careful work from both the sound and visual effects departments. Gregory James Cohen recorded his voice work in post-production, with his lines crafted to match the edited scenes and Lopez's performance. Sound designers then processed Cohen's voice to give it the slightly artificial quality that suggested technological mediation while keeping it warm and personable enough to support the emotional relationship developing between Atlas and Smith. Visual effects artists created holographic displays and interface elements that would represent Smith's visual presence within the suit, designing a character who existed only as light and data but still felt like a fully realized personality. Color grading represented another crucial element of post-production, with colorists determining the overall look and feel of the film. The color palette needed to differentiate between Earth scenes, the alien planet, and Harlan's technological stronghold, creating visual distinction while maintaining cohesion across the entire film. Earth scenes receive warmer, more familiar color tones, while the alien planet featured slightly desaturated colors with unusual tints that suggested an environment foreign to human experience. Harlan's base employed cold blues and harsh whites, creating a sterile, threatening environment that reflected the character's twisted vision for humanity's future. Sound design and mixing consumed months of work, creating the audio landscape that would immerse audiences in the film's world. Sound designers created distinctive audio signatures for every piece of technology in the film, from the mechanical servos of the ARC suits to the hum of alien machinery to the specific sonic characteristics of futuristic weapons. These sounds needed to feel appropriate to the visual technology while remaining clear and distinct enough to avoid muddling the soundtrack. The sound team recorded custom sounds, manipulated existing sound libraries, and synthesized entirely new audio elements to build the film's comprehensive soundscape. The mixing process balanced dialogue, sound effects, and music, ensuring that each element could be heard clearly while creating a rich, immersive audio experience. Particular attention was paid to the scenes inside the ARC suits, where designers created an interior acoustic that would make audiences feel enclosed within the machine while still allowing them to hear external threats and Smith's voice clearly. The mix needed to work across various playback systems, from high-end home theater setups to phone speakers, ensuring that Netflix's global audience could enjoy the film regardless of their viewing circumstances. Throughout post-production, director Brad Peyton maintained close oversight of every department, reviewing work in progress and providing guidance to ensure all elements aligned with his creative vision. Regular feedback sessions allow the director to request adjustments and refinements, iterating toward the final result. This process continued almost up to the film's delivery date, with the production utilizing every available day to polish and perfect the visual and audio elements that would comprise the finished film. Music. The musical score for Atlas played a crucial role in establishing the film's emotional landscape and enhancing the impact of its action sequences. While the Wikipedia source does not provide extensive details about the composer or the scoring process, the music needed to serve multiple functions within the film, underscoring Atlas's emotional journey, intensifying the action sequences, representing the film's themes about humanity and artificial intelligence, and creating a sonic identity that would help Atlas stand apart from other science fiction action films. Contemporary film scoring for large-scale science fiction action films typically involves creating a balance between orchestral grandeur and electronic elements that suggest the technological aspects of the story. The score for Atlas likely followed this approach, using traditional orchestral instruments to represent the human elements of the story while incorporating synthesizers and electronic processing to represent the artificial intelligence and technology that pervades the film's world. The composer would have worked closely with Brad Peyton during post-production to identify key moments that required musical emphasis and to determine the emotional tone appropriate for each scene. This process, known as spotting, helps establish where music begins and ends and what emotional or narrative function it serves. For Atlas, particularly important spotting decisions would have involved the scenes between Atlas and Smith, where music needed to support the developing relationship without overwhelming the dialogue and performances. Thematic development represents a crucial element of effective film scoring, particularly for character-driven narratives like Atlas. The composer likely created distinct musical themes or motifs for major characters and concepts within the film. Atlas herself would have required a theme that could evolve throughout the film, starting with music that suggests her isolation and distrust, then gradually incorporating warmer, more open elements as she learns to connect with Smith and overcome her trauma. Smith might have had a theme that blends human emotional elements with more artificial, electronic textures, representing the eye's unique position between human and machine. The action sequences presented opportunities for the composer to create propulsive, exciting music that would enhance the visceral impact of the combat and chase scenes. However, effective action scoring requires more than simply loud, fast music. The composer needed to create musical variation that would prevent fatigue and maintain audience engagement across multiple action set pieces. Different action sequences likely receive different musical approaches based on their dramatic context and released theatrical. Unlike many major studio releases that receive both theatrical and streaming distribution, Atlas followed an increasingly common path for Netflix productions: exclusive release on the streaming platform with no traditional theatrical run. This distribution strategy represents Netflix's continued commitment to driving subscriptions and viewership on their platform rather than pursuing box office revenue through theatrical exhibition. The decision to forego theatrical release reflects broader trends in the entertainment industry, where streaming services have increasingly positioned themselves as complete entertainment ecosystems that don't require the traditional theatrical window. While some Netflix films do receive limited theatrical releases to qualify for awards consideration or to satisfy filmmaker preferences, Atlas was designed from inception as a streaming exclusive, with all production and marketing decisions made with this distribution model in mind. The lack of theatrical release meant that Atlas would not generate the traditional box office metrics that usually define a film's commercial success. Instead, its performance would be measured through Netflix's proprietary viewership data, which tracks how many accounts watched the film and for how long. This shift in metrics has fundamentally changed how success is defined in the streaming era, moving away from ticket sales and opening weekend numbers toward engagement metrics like total views, viewing hours, and completion rates. For Jennifer Lopez and the other talent involved in the film, the lack of a theatrical release represented both a limitation and an opportunity. On one hand, they would miss the traditional publicity cycle of red carpet premieres, press junkets at film festivals, and the potential prestige of a successful theatrical run. On the other hand, the film would immediately be available to Netflix's global subscriber base of over 200 million accounts, providing reach that even the most successful theatrical releases struggle to match in their initial runs. The theatrical release strategy, or lack thereof, also influenced the film's production decisions. Without the need to meet traditional theatrical standards for projection quality, the filmmakers had somewhat more flexibility in their visual effects work, though Netflix's push for high-quality content meant that standards remain rigorous. The film was finished and delivered in multiple formats to accommodate Netflix's various streaming tiers and a wide range of devices on which subscribers might watch, from 4K HDR on high-end home theaters to standard definition on mobile devices. Home media. As a Netflix exclusive, Atlas existed in a unique position regarding what would traditionally be called home media release. The film became available for streaming to all Netflix subscribers on May 24, 2024, bypassing the traditional windows that see theatrical releases eventually moving to home video formats like Blu-ray, DVD, and digital purchase or rental platforms. The release date of May 24, 2024, was strategically chosen to coincide with the Memorial Day weekend in the United States, a period traditionally associated with major theatrical releases and increased media consumption as many people enjoy a long holiday weekend. This timing aimed to maximize the film's viewership during its crucial first weekend, when Netflix's promotional push would be at its peak and social media conversation around the film would be most intense. Netflix's approach to releasing Atlas included making it available globally to all subscribers at the same time, eliminating the staggered international release patterns common to theatrical distribution. This simultaneous global release meant that conversations about the film could happen in real time across different countries and time zones, potentially generating more social media buzz and word-of-mouth promotion than a traditional release pattern might achieve. The streaming release allowed Netflix to gather comprehensive data about how audiences engaged with a film. The platform could track not only how many people watched Atlas but also what percentage of viewers watched it through to completion, how many rewatched it, and how viewing patterns differed across different demographic groups and geographic regions. This data would prove valuable both for evaluating the film's success and for informing future programming decisions. Netflix promoted Atlas heavily across its platform in the weeks leading up to and following the release. The film received prominent placement on the service's home screen, with trailers and promotional materials featuring in various locations throughout the Netflix interface. The streaming service also utilized its social media presence and email newsletters to drive awareness of the release, targeting both general subscribers and those whose viewing histories suggested they might particularly enjoy the film. The release strategy included making the film available in multiple audio and subtitle languages immediately upon release, ensuring that Netflix's global audience could enjoy Atlas in their preferred language. This localization effort represented a significant investment but was crucial for a film designed to appeal to international audiences. The availability of dubbing and subtitles in dozens of languages helped the film achieve its impressive global reach and viewership numbers. Unlike traditional home media releases, which might include extensive bonus features, behind-the-scenes documentaries, and commentary tracks, Netflix's release of Atlas focused solely on the film itself. The streaming service has generally not emphasized supplementary content for its original films, preferring to direct subscriber attention toward watching more content rather than exploring deeper into any single title. This approach represents a fundamental difference from the traditional home media market, where bonus features serve to justify purchases and add value for consumers. The long-term availability of Atlas on Netflix depended on the specific terms of the production and distribution agreements between the platform and the various production companies involved. Unlike purchased physical media, which consumers own permanently, streaming availability is subject to licensing agreements and business decisions that can result in content being removed from the platform. However, as a Netflix original production, Atlas would likely remain available on the service for the foreseeable future, barring unusual circumstances. Reception box office. The concept of box office performance holds limited relevance for Atlas, as the film received no theatrical release and generated no box office revenue in the traditional sense. However, understanding what replaced box office metrics for this Netflix release provides insight into how success is measured in the streaming era and how Atlas performed according to these new standards. Netflix's proprietary viewership metrics became the equivalent of box office numbers for Atlas, with the platform reporting that the film accumulated 28.2 million views in its opening week from May 20 to 26, 2024. These views translated to approximately 56.3 million viewing hours, making Atlas the most watched title on Netflix for that period. To understand the scale of this performance, it's worth noting that this level of viewership represented one of the strongest opening weeks for any Netflix original film in 2024. The streaming service calculates a view as an account watching at least 2 minutes of a title, a metric that has drawn criticism for potentially inflating viewership numbers compared to more stringent measures that might require viewers to watch a larger percentage of the runtime. However, this metric remains the industry standard for Netflix reporting, and by this measure, Atlas performed exceptionally well, reaching audiences across Netflix's global subscriber base with impressive speed. The film's performance demonstrated remarkable reach across international markets, appearing in Netflix's top 10 list in 93 countries. This global presence showcased both the universal appeal of the film's science fiction action premise and Jennifer Lopez's international star power. More impressively, Atlas reached the #1 position in 71 countries, indicating that it wasn't merely popular but dominant in the vast majority of markets where it appeared. By June 5, 2024, approximately 2 weeks after release, Atlas had accumulated 60 million global views, translating to 119.4 million viewing hours. This sustained viewership beyond the opening week indicated that the film had achieved word-of-mouth success and continued to attract new viewers even as the initial promotional push subsided. The accumulation of viewing hours placed Atlas among Netflix's most successful releases for the year, demonstrating strong performance by any measure the platform uses. Netflix also reported an 80% completion rate for Atlas, meaning that 4 out of every 5 viewers who started the film watched it through to the end credits. This metric proved particularly significant because it suggested that audiences were genuinely engaged with the film rather than simply sampling it briefly and moving on. High completion rates indicate that a film successfully maintains audience interest throughout its runtime. a positive sign for a 2-hour action film that could potentially lose viewers during its quieter middle section. The viewership numbers for Atlas took on additional significance in the context of Jennifer Lopez's relationship with Netflix. The film became the fourth Lopez-starring vehicle to top Netflix's streaming charts in just 2 years, following Shotgun Wedding, 2022, The Mother, 2023, and This Is Me, Now, A Love Story, 2024. This consistent performance established Lopez as one of Netflix's most reliable draws, capable of attracting substantial audiences regardless of the specific project. Atlas achieved the distinction of becoming the second most watched title starring Lopez on the platform, a remarkable achievement given the success of her previous Netflix releases. The economic implications of these viewership numbers, while not directly comparable to traditional box office revenue, proved significant for Netflix's business model. Every view represented a subscriber who chose to spend their viewing time with Netflix rather than competing streaming services, contributing to subscriber retention and satisfaction. The platform's investment in Atlas and its reported $100 million budget could be justified by the film's ability to attract and engage subscribers, even without generating direct revenue through ticket sales. Industry analysts noted that Atlas performed particularly well during a Memorial Day weekend when the theatrical box office struggled to attract audiences. This contrast highlighted a shifting landscape of entertainment consumption, where streaming releases could dominate public attention even as theatrical releases from major studios underperformed. The success of Atlas on Netflix potentially influenced future distribution decisions across the industry, providing further evidence that streaming exclusives could achieve cultural impact and audience reach comparable to, or exceeding, traditional theatrical releases. The viewership performance of Atlas also demonstrated the effectiveness of Netflix's recommendation algorithms and promotional strategies. The platform's ability to surface the film to appropriate audiences, combined with the inherent appeal of the cast and premise, created a virtuous cycle where initial viewership led to increased algorithmic promotion, which in turn drove additional views. This system, unique to streaming platforms, represented a new form of word-of-mouth that could build momentum for content in ways that theatrical releases struggled to replicate. Critical response. The critical reception of Atlas stood in stark contrast to its audience popularity, with professional film critics delivering overwhelmingly negative assessments of the film. This disconnect between critical opinion and viewer engagement would become one of the most discussed aspects of the film's release, raising questions about their role and relevance of film criticism in the streaming era. On Rotten Tomatoes, the industry's most prominent review aggregation site, Atlas received a mere 19% positive rating from critics, based on 110 professional reviews. This score placed it among the lowest-rated major releases of 2024 and represented one of Jennifer Lopez's worst-reviewed films. The site's Review.1 plot, Atlas Shepard, a brilliant but misanthropic data analyst with a deep distrust of artificial intelligence, joins a mission to capture a renegade robot with whom she shares a mysterious past. When plans go awry, her only hope of saving the future of humanity from AI is to trust that review. Jennifer Lopez has been in 5 films over the last 2 years, and another, Unstoppable, is still on the way. After her acclaimed 2019 performance in Hustlers, Lopez has starred in 2 romantic comedies, 2 action films, and a bizarre music video/biopic monstrosity linked to her latest album. Now, her second Netflix feature in as many years, Atlas, aims to be J. Lo's Marvel-esque blockbuster but falls short in every conceivable way. Directed by San Andreas Helmer Brad Peyton, Atlas is a special effects-laden foray into the most cliched science fiction genre offering I have seen in a long time. With what is supposed to be a timely tale about artificial intelligence, Atlas throws every trope from the last 50 years of sci-fi movies as it aims to be Netflix's attempt at the summer tentpole picture. Underwhelming in every way, Atlas is a directionless and limp mess that wastes the talents of everyone involved. Opening with a montage of news clips summarizing how the world reached the point it has, Atlas explains that humanity is at war with an AI android named Harlan, Simu Liu, who was created by Dr. Val Shepard, Lana Parrilla, Atlas' mother. After leaving our solar system and hiding for over a decade, Harlan sends an android named Cascadesius, Abraham Popula, to Earth. General Jake Booth, Mark Strong, enlists analyst Atlas Shepard, Jennifer Lopez, to join a team led by Colonel Elias Banks, Sterling K. Brown, to travel to the planet where Harlan is hiding and bring him to justice before he destroys the Earth. Atlas, who harbors a deep hatred for technology and is reluctant to join the mission as Banks' soldiers rely on mech suits known as ARCs, which also require syncing the human and machine via a device worn around the ear. Sure enough, the mission is compromised, and Atlas is left alone on the hostile planet aboard an ARC with an AI known as Smith. Gregory James Cohen. After 30 minutes of quick intro, the next hour of Atlas is spent forcing Jennifer Lopez to begrudgingly ally with Smith, pulling every genre conceit ranging from Terminator 2, Judgment Day, Enemy Mine, and even The Iron Giant. Atlas must learn to trust the machine in her suit even though she knows Harlan and his kind are the reason her mother is dead. Having Jennifer Lopez try to feel an emotional connection to a machine is challenging, and it is even more difficult for the audience as we spend almost the entire film with Lopez inside a mech suit, talking in a disembodied voice. The filmmakers try to make it cute by having Smith adopt characteristics of Atlas' personality as they slowly sink, which means we hear a robot casually use profanity and begin to blend emotion with intelligence that feels more like Mr. Spock getting drunk than anything a machine would do. A few battle sequences are peppered in as Atlas shuffles through the getting-to-know-you stages to properly bond with Smith and take down Harlan and his army of androids. If Atlas had been at least superficially invested in developing any of the characters aside from the main character, I could have invested in this story. Sterling K. Brown, Mark Strong, and Simu Liu collectively appear for all 10 minutes of screen time each. With Simu Liu set to be the equivalent of a Terminator-esque nemesis, his screen time is limited to a few scenes with little dialogue, followed by a massive battle that pits Harlan against Atlas within her mesh suit. This fight sequence is meant to be the film's centerpiece, but it looks so bad that it would never hold up on the big screen. Simu Liu looks like he is making virtually the same movements as he did in Shanghai and the Legend of the Ten Rings, to the point I am not sure they didn't just pull footage from the Marvel Studios film and use them here with some updated rendering. The wasted talent of all actors involved is made much worse by the ham-handed dialogue that never once feels like it would come out of the mouth of a human being. Director Brad Peyton has worked with big-budget special effects projects before, mostly with Dwayne Johnson involved. Journey 2, The Mysterious Island made the silly CGI feel fun, while both San Andreas and Rampage took the destruction porn to new heights while still managing to create realistic tension. The entirety of Atlas looks to have been filmed on a green screen, with virtually nothing tangible. The mech suits are laughable compared to similar suits seen in James Cameron's Avatar films, with the movements and mechanics paling compared to even the most mediocre video game cutscenes. The script by Leo Sardarian, along with rewrites by Aaron Eli Collier, rushes to establish the rules of this near-future society and yet still feels the need to put a title card on the screen stating the action is taking place in Los Angeles despite the massive Hollywood sign in the middle of the frame. The entirety of Atlas features dialogue as superficial as this, including an emotional question meant to resonate with the audience regarding whether Atlas prefers cake or pie. Atlas delivered a solid teaser trailer that intrigued me enough to check out the movie, but I have not been this disappointed by a feature film in a long time. I should learn to keep my Netflix expectations very low, but having enjoyed Brad Peyton's work in the past and assuming the cast could pull this one off, I was foolish in thinking this would be anything more than another filler effort. The production values look good but the subpar CGI offsets any positives this movie has. Jennifer Lopez has two brief scenes that almost rescue her performance, but they cannot overcome the ChatGPT caliber dialogue spouted in this 2-hour exercise in boredom. I never thought I would see a day when a movie featuring robots battling mech suits would be boring, but Atlas has sadly proven me wrong. Review. 2 Technically, Atlas is a sci-fi flick, set some unspecified number of years in the future. The Brad Peyton directed feature concerns a data analyst, Jennifer Lopez, tasked with stopping the world's first high terrorist, a robot named Harlan, Simu Liu, who'd broken his own programming to orchestrate the slaughter of the millions. But Blade Runner this isn't, and not just because its tepid script and uninspired visuals place Atlas within the ever-expanding box of Netflix movies best half-watched on planes. The robot war is mere pretext for the saga of a woman learning to love again, starring a celebrity whose public persona is largely built around her willingness to let herself love again. Never mind the fact that there is no actual human love interest in structure and theme. Atlas is a J.Lo rom-com in shiny metal packaging. Release date, Friday, May 24. Netflix. Cast, Jennifer Lopez, Gregory James Cohen, Sterling K. Brown, Simu Liu, Abraham Popula, Mark Strong, Lana Perola director, Brad Peyton screenwriters, Leo Sardarian, Aaron Eli Colliet rated PG-13, 2 hours like it's prickly heroine. Though, Atlas takes time to reveal its true self. The first act plays like a glossier rip-off of Aliens, with Atlas being recruited by International Military General Booth, Mark Strong, to help corner Harlan on the remote planet he's been hiding on for the past 28 years. Not only is Atlas a genius, as telegraphed by a morning routine that includes beating her holographic virtual assistant at chess for the 71st game in a row. She knows Harlan more intimately than perhaps any living soul. The daughter of his late creator, Lana Perola, she's the closest thing he has to a sister. Understandably, Harlan's betrayal has left Atlas guarded, suspicious of eyes and wary of being hacked. Where Colonel Banks, Sterling K. Brown, and his squadron tout the benefits of Neuralink earpieces that facilitate perfect two-way integration between human brains and eye-controlled armors, like JARVIS and Iron Man's Bond on steroids. Atlas insists on taking the mission fully analog. Paper? Where do you find a printer? A younger soldier laughs as she hands out copies of the briefing, but when the ship is attacked immediately upon landing, Atlas is forced into a mech suit of her very own. This one controlled by an eye calling himself Smith, Gregory James Cohen in a voice-only role. It is here that Atlas' real journey finally reveals itself. Atlas and Smith press on with their original mission to neutralize Harlan, under relentless attack from his forces. But long stretches of the 2-hour runtime see Atlas alone in her suit with only Smith for company. She lets her guard down bit by bit, opening up about her childhood and engaging in friendly-ish debate about what counts as life. He grows more fluent in her native language of sarcasm. We might not be rooting for them to kiss. Honestly, I don't even know how that'd work. But Cohen and Lopez's chemistry elevates otherwise unremarkable dialogue into passably amusing, occasionally touching banter. As the danger around them intensifies, so does their connection. Atlas and Smith inch closer to 100% synchronization, at which point they will become, as Banks had previously explained, not human or I but something new, a perfect symbiosis. This looks much less cool than it sounds on screen. It primarily manifests as an annoying habit of finishing each other's sentences. Atlas demonstrates very little curiosity in general about the social or philosophical issues raised by its premise. What's to prevent the current generation of androids from going rogue as Harlan once did? Atlas vaguely explains the new models are just better. Who are the eyes without their Homo sapiens counterparts? We never meet any solo eyes but Harlan. How did our relationship to technology change after Harlan broke so many machines free of their programming? We don't see enough of everyday life in this world to guess. What the film does want to get into is Atlas trust issues. Ostensibly, the stakes of Atlas' mission are as high as they get, since Harlan poses a threat to all of Earth. But because the story's scope barely extends beyond Atlas and Smith, with no other characters or relationships meaningful enough to invest in, her beef with Harlan reads as entirely personal. He's akin to the ultimate toxic ex, who left Atlas shattered and even now refuses to leave her alone. By the same logic, Smith plays the role of the new beau who heroically teaches Atlas that it's safe to love again. If you told me Atlas started as a cut segment from This Is Me, A Broken Bar Now, a love story, I'd probably believe you. The interstellar conflict comes to a head, of course, In the laster and longest of the movie's polished but totally unmemorable CG-heavy action sequences, but its emotional climax arrives just afterward in the form of a heartfelt speech extolling, among other things, small quiet gestures of affection for a futuristic, planet-hopping adventure. Atlas feels awfully tiny as a romance, minus the actual romance. It treads no new emotional terrain, but there's something oddly relatable, even romantic about its hope that healing one's heart might be the first step in saving the world. Review. 3 Starring Jennifer Lopez, this sci-fi flick takes us into the fascinating world of artificial intelligence and what it means to be human. But as we dive into Brad Peyton's latest creation, we can't help but feel a twinge of disappointment. Despite the star power of Lopez, Sterling K. Brown, Mark Strong, and Simu Liu, Atlas falls short of captivating us. With lackluster performances and a plot that feels all too familiar, it leaves us craving more. So, let's dive Atlas movie review and share our thoughts on this cinematic adventure, just like we would with a friend over coffee. Story and script analysis. Atlas attempts to weave a tale of AI and human interaction, but it falters significantly. The script, penned by Leo Sardarian and Aaron Eli Collier, lacks depth and originality, making it hard to distinguish from something that could have been generated by AI. The movie's narrative is devoid of engaging world-building, memorable moments, and clever dialogue, resulting in a predictable and uninspired storyline. The absence of tension and compelling relationships further diminishes its impact, especially in a genre where the setting and character dynamics are crucial. Star performances. Despite having a cast of acclaimed actors, Atlas falls short in the performance department. Jennifer Lopez, who tries to anchor the film, is let down by weak material surrounding her character. Sterling K. Brown and Mark Strong, known for their powerful performances, are unfortunately underutilized and appear lost in the film's unoriginal sci-fi universe. Simu Liu's portrayal of the villain, Harlan, fails to bring the necessary menace and seriousness to the role, further undermining the film's credibility. Direction and music. Brad Peyton, known for his work on San Andreas and Rampage, fails to inject his usual fun and excitement into Atlas. The film suffers from subpar visual effects and a lack of quality control, possibly due to budget constraints and a tight schedule. While composer Andrew Lockington delivers a potent score, the lackluster visuals and performances prevent it from reaching its full potential, leaving the music as one of the few redeeming qualities. Atlas movie trailer. Final verdict. Atlas embodies the stereotypical Netflix movie with its cheap look and underdeveloped ideas. It misses the mark on providing meaningful commentary on AI, an area ripe for exploration given current technological advancements. Instead, it presents a cliché-filled copyright-y and shallow narrative that fails to engage or entertain. Overall, Atlas is a sci-fi misfire that squanders its talented cast and intriguing premise, making it a film that's easy to pass on. Recommended. BAG movie review. In conclusion, Atlas is a disappointing addition to the sci-fi genre, struggling to find its footing amidst a sea of better alternatives. For those looking for a more satisfying cinematic experience, other options like Furiosa and Dune are still available in theaters. The review. Atlas takes audiences on a journey into the world of artificial intelligence and humanity's essence, led by Jennifer Lopez and a star-studded cast. However, despite its promising premise, the film falls short with weak performances and a predictable plot. Overall, Atlas leaves much to be desired, failing to deliver the compelling cinematic experience it aims for. Review. For as long as I can remember, I've heard that artificial intelligence would one day rule the world. As technology advances at an exponential rate, the fear that stems from that sentiment seems to be increasing as well. Will one day machines and AI completely take over our world, resulting in the demise of the human population? Will humans no longer be at the top of the food chain, having built the next link in the chain with our own hands in the never-ending pursuit for more? While I think we are still far from that becoming our reality, this idea has been at the center of many science fiction films and series, including the upcoming Netflix movie, Atlas, directed by Brad Peyton, San Andreas, Rampage, Daybreak, and written by Leo Sardarian, Startup, and Aaron Eli Collier, Daybreak, Heroes. Atlas explores what happens when the human race has been waging war against the machines for decades. Jennifer Lopez stars as the title character Atlas Shepard and is joined by a talented cast: Simu Liu, Sterling K. Brown, Mark Strong, and Lana Parrilla. As a co-production of Ace App Entertainment, Safe House Pictures, Noah Irakan Productions, and Berlanti Schechter Films, co-owned by Greg Berlanti, and the production company that brought the world red, white, royal blue, Atlas is ready to bring a healthy dose of action to our screens this Friday. Continue on to see if this film should be a part of your Memorial Weekend plans. There are light spoilers for Atlas ahead. Atlas Shepard finds herself in the middle of a war in this Netflix film at the age of 38. Atlas Lopez has experienced more than a lifetime of disaster and heartache, all thanks to a war that just doesn't seem to end. Beginning when she was just a 10-year-old child, the balance that existed between humans and artificial intelligence tipped unfavorably for humankind. As the daughter of the creator of AI, Lana Parrilla, Atlas watched firsthand how fast the tides of war can change, especially when the machines shook off their shackles and rose to power. As a result, she feels she has a sense of obligation and responsibility to the human race, to find the leader of the AI army, Simu Liu, and bring him to justice. When information comes to light about his whereabouts, Atlas sets off on an adventure with Colonel Elias Banks, Sterling K. Brown, across space to stop Harlan before he brings the war back home. Easier said than done for the brilliant scientist, who forgoes her lifestyle and safety to travel to war-torn planets with danger lurking behind every corner. And yet, traveling through space isn't the most difficult part for Atlas, who almost doesn't seem fazed by it. Instead, she must learn to trust the very thing she's leaving home to hunt down. Time is ticking down and success isn't promised, but with the help of Smith, her mecha suit that becomes her saving grace, she just might be able to finish the job before it's too late. Wonderful action and an interesting story make Atlas fun to watch. It takes a lot to impress me with action films, as they aren't my favorite genre. Give me a drama any day of the week or a romantic comedy, and I'm set for the length of their runtime. However, action films fall into a similar trap. The story is all but forgotten for cool graphics and stellar stunts. Sure, it looks cool, but where's the substance? There are only so many times you can see a car chase before they all start to feel the same. I suppose the same argument could be made with the same cookie-cutter Hallmark movie, but there's something about action films that I struggle to connect with if the story itself feels lacking in some way. For Atlas, I didn't experience this issue, as the story was fascinating enough to keep me glued to my seat for the 2-hour film. It doesn't feel like the same old artificial intelligence taking over the world of film. Atlas is more about saving the world from impending destruction, a war that has been brewing for almost 3 decades. It was also a personal journey, as Atlas learns to trust herself and the world around her. She goes from a scared child in an adult body to a badass hero in her own right. This second journey made Atlas all the more enjoyable for me, as it appealed to the psychologist in me. Watching someone grow past their trauma adds character depth and an arc that elevates the war between man and machine plot to something more, which is necessary to differentiate from every other film in this genre. Paired with that, Atlas did have some fun action. Thanks to Simu Liu's character and a lovable mecha suit, Liu has become one of my favorite stars on the scene currently, and part of that is the level of ease he gives in his action scenes. Similar in nature to how he was in Shanghai, Harlan looks incredibly cool as he's flipping through the sky and delivering devastating blows to Jlo. The scenes in which Atlas isn't Smith and going on a rampage are some of my favorites. Smith is a favorite of mine, and I expect him to become a beloved character for most people who see him. The wisecracking suit adds levity to the film's heaviness but also provides the heart of the story. Jennifer Lopez's characterization in Atlas left me puzzled. The biggest head-scratchers from this film were Atlas herself, who felt neglected in her own film. For starters, Lopez is a 54-year-old who is playing a 38-year-old. I can understand why this shouldn't be a problem, but it kept catching me. as there was nothing of importance for that big of age gaps between the actor and the role. It was insignificant to the story for it to take 28 years later, so why not make it 38 years? Why not embrace Lopez's age and allow her to be an awesome, gorgeous, badass woman who is in her 50s saving the world from AI? That is the narrative Atlas should have embraced instead of attempting to hide her age like it's something to be afraid of. I'm not sure who made that call, but seriously, people, there's nothing wrong with aging. Embrace the wrinkles. Let your grace show. You're beautiful no matter what. Let's start telling stories that also encourage that narrative instead of feeling shameful for being in our 50s. Like, come on all broken bar, we're all going to wish we looked like Chloe when we're her age. Atlas also felt rather one-dimensional for the first half of the film. I understood why they chose to do so by the end, as Atlas has channeled her trauma into a specific mission, which pushes her to pursue Harlan across the universe. But I feel like there were other ways to portray that on screen. I'm not sure if this was a choice by the writers, director, or Lopez herself, but something felt off, and I think I would have connected even more if I had something else from Atlas. Final thoughts on Netflix's newest sci-fi film. Overall, I enjoyed Atlas more than many other action films currently out. It has everything that fans of the genre could want but provides other substance for those who are looking for something more. The story of Atlas Shepard is strong and one that many will be able to relate to, as we've all struggled with something from our past that we just can't seem to shake. Sure, it might not concern AI attempting to take over the world, but the drive is still the same. If you're looking for something fast-paced to watch this weekend between the yard work and grilled hot dogs, then Atlas should definitely be on the top of your list. Review. 3 decades after a devastating attack by rogue guy Harlan, Simu Liu, Atlas, Jennifer Lopez, joins a crack team to track him down. These days, any original sci-fi film is worth cheering for. One boasting genuine movie stars is even more exciting. Sadly, this Brad Peyton effort can't deliver on its promise. The Rampage director benefits from some cool imagery and a great cast, in particular a committed lead performance from Jennifer Lopez. But wastes it on predictable character beats and a pat drama narrative. It's all very sci-fi looking, lots of flying cars and blue glowy things. No surprise given the specs, borrows and steals from classic films and games of the genre. An opening raid to capture the rebel line known as Casca, Abraham Popula, is heavily indebted to the attack on Trinity in The Matrix, while a computer voice asking, "Do you wish to continue?" as someone watches the news is surely meant to evoke Starship Troopers. The plot echoes the 2004 Robot. Lopez's eye-skeptic Atlas must overcome her painful past to unite with an artificial intelligence and save the day from an evil robot, Simu Liu. Lopez is committed and manages to sell some objectively ridiculous scenes. A considerable chunk of time involves Atlas adapting to an interactive mech suit and its eye companion Smith, Gregory James Cohen, which she must use to navigate a hostile planet where the big bad is hanging out. This section has lots of extremely relatable moments of tech frustration, the endless pressure to sign up for services you don't want, the patronizing user manual, the creepily intrusive data mining. It's funny and horrifying at the same time. Surely by the time we have flying cars and an LA that looks like Singapore we should have moved past this. The premise, frustratingly, leaves the physically gifted Lopez essentially locked in a box for ages. Liu is similarly confined to lurk menacingly and rely on eerie contact lenses for impact. Still, there are entertaining moments as Smith develops sarcasm and Atlas gets to grips with action, though they can't make up for the strongly conservative narrative. For a film about robots, this is remarkably heavy on God and country motifs. There's also some muddy exposition that smacks of rewrites, and rushed VFX that the film can't afford. Anything with mech suits and a first-person shooter scene risks looking gamey to begin with. You can't short-change the VFX as well. In the end, there's a little too much woo-woo. Become one with the machine talk for this to really sing. It's a metaphor for overcoming trauma but also deathly literal. Lopez is committed and manages to sell some objectively ridiculous scenes, but the narrative can't get past its own obsession with therapy speak, when what it really needs is a raft of old-fashioned one-liners instead. Lopez throws everything at this, But even major movie star charisma can't make up for the recycled story elements, tired exposition and endless psychobabble. Maybe the machines can take over and do better. Just so you know, we may receive a commission or other compensation from the links on this website. Read why you should trust us. Review. 6 Netflix's latest film pitching Humans Against High Atlas made its debut on May 24, 2024. The film stars Jennifer Lopez in the lead role of Atlas Shepard, a data analyst who takes on the mission of capturing Harlan, an iRobot gone rogue and now intent on eliminating half of the human population. Lopez is joined by a few notable names, including Simu Liu, Sterling K. Brown, and Mark Strong. However, despite Atlas topping the charts with its promising plot and talented cast, the film has not had much luck in terms of audience reviews. Since the release of Atlas's official trailer in April 2024, viewers have been quick to point out that the premise of the film bears quite a few similarities to the beloved first-person shooter franchise, Titanfall. From the mesh to the manner in which humans interact with them and the relationships between the mech and their humans, Atlas looks to have faithfully adapted certain elements of the game. With fans of the game having long lobbied for another addition to the game, given that Titanfall 2 was released back in 2016, it appears as if Netflix has decided to offer fans of the game some respite. However, does this mean that Atlas is actually a Titanfall film? What is Atlas about? Atlas's plot is primarily centered on the I versus human dilemma. Despite being created by humans, I evolves to have a mind of its own, with thinking patterns and technology that inevitably become more advanced than that of humans. This plot, having been the focus of many films in the industry in recent times, is nothing novel for viewers. However, a film or series can establish its own original identity by choosing to depict the conflict between I and the human race in unique, memorable ways. It is clear that Atlas has attempted to set itself apart from works based on a similar plot through creative choices related to the cast, emotional impact of the narrative, and visual elements. Having Lopez's character of Atlas Shepard as the protagonist and giving her a personal connection to the main gone rogue, Harlan, is Atlas's attempt to drive home the message that AI technology, despite being created with the best of intentions, cannot be trusted. Appealing to the emotions of viewers and offering a backstory, the film makes Atlas herself the enabler for Harlan to go rogue, even leading to her mother's death. It is this guilt that drives Atlas's resentment and distrust of I and ultimately impacts her relationship with Smith, her mech, contributing to the film's plot, meaning, humor, and wit. The narrative is supported by stunning visuals that depict life on Earth as well as the atmosphere on GR39, a film inspired by the game. Despite Atlas's attempts to carve out its own unique identity, it falls short. In addition to the plot and characters seeming somewhat underdeveloped, Atlas bears too many similarities to Titanfall, almost making it seem like an adaptation of the game. The relationships between Atlas and Smith is reminiscent of the relationships between Jack Cooper and BT-7274 in the game. The mech's inclination to protect its ranger, pilot is extremely similar in both the game and film. Moreover, the film has also adopted a few taglines from the game, directly incorporating them into the correspondence between Atlas and Smith. The storyline of the film is also likely to feel familiar to fans of the Titanfall. Smith sacrifices himself for his ranger in the same manner that BT-7274 sacrifices himself for Jack Cooper in the game, and both Smith and BT-7274 are revived through the insertion of their CPUs into new meshes. In addition to the narrative, the film also bears several technical similarities to the game, including the depiction of the meshes, their weapons, and even the way the ranger, pilot enters the mech. The director of Atlas, Brad Peyton, has not denied that inspiration for Atlas was found in Titanfall. However, talking to Total Film, Peyton also emphasized that Atlas was meant to be its own separate entity, different from the video game. This essentially makes Atlas not a Titanfall film. Regardless of the director's comments, the stark similarities between the game and film cannot be denied, and viewers have justifiably been questioning how Atlas is not a Titanfall film. I'm one of those people that's seen all the Rutger Hauer movies that no one else has seen. I'm that guy. To me, science fiction is hallowed ground, and because of that, I don't want to retread what's been done well before. So that was Avatar, Aliens, Titanfall, a few other old movies I loved from the 80s. And then to make sure the scale of mine was different, the shape of mine was different, the movement was different. I wanted this to be its own thing. Will there be a Titanfall film? With Peyton's emphasis that Atlas is not a Titanfall film, despite the many similarities, the next natural question for fans of the game has been whether a possibility for an actual Titanfall film exists. Unfortunately for fans, at the time of writing, no information regarding a movie based on the games exists. However, future possibilities cannot be denied. After all, much-loved games such as Fallout, Assassin's Creed, and Halo have gone on to become their own films and series. It is likely that a film based on Titanfall may not be the highest priority at the moment, given the backlash that Atlas is experiencing. Despite topping Netflix's global top 10 chart, Atlas has a dismal 20% on Rotten Tomatoes. While the film has been credited for its visual effects, viewers believe that Jennifer Lopez may not have been the optimum fit for the role of Atlas, and have faulted the film for its lack of depth and character development. Given the negativity that the film has attracted, despite adapting enough features to make viewers think Atlas might be a Titanfall film, it would be best if the wave of negativity was ridden out before an actual Titanfall film went into production, if it chooses to do so. Until then, Titanfall lovers will have to make do with Atlas.